The Innovators Network.
Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovations podcast. This is a special episode. We took the mobile bus to Philadelphia for the Cable Tec-Expo Show. We parked the bus right on the show floor and collected a whole bunch of interviews there at the show, getting a variety of perspectives, not only of innovation in North America, but also from companies in Europe, sharing their thoughts on what's happening in the broadband industry and what's happening in innovation in general. All the people that we interview are innovation leaders within their respective organizations. And today is the first of those interviews. The other ones will come out about every other week or so, I think is kind of the timing we will do. But today, this is the kickoff for the very first episode. This interview is with Hanno Narjus. Hanno is the SVP Network Products. He's also the CEO of Teleste Intercept. Now, Teleste has been around for quite some time, 900 employees. We talk a lot about what they're seeing in Europe and what's it like to be a European innovation leader trying to come into the U.S. market, as an example. But we spent a lot of time talking about the history of what's happening in Finland. If you think back to way back to Nokia being kind of the big company in Finland and being an innovation leader on a global scale. And then what happened to Nokia? They missed the cycle and they got disrupted by others, mainly the Apple iPhone disrupting the entire mobile phone. Now, Hanno came from Nokia, and we talked about that and the impact of Nokia's failure to innovate, but the positive impact of all of those Nokia people, thousands and thousands of employees of Nokia being scattered around Finland and being encouraged and supported by the government, by the universities, by businesses, by venture capital to start their own businesses. And what that resulted in a positive impact on the economy and the country as a whole. So that was a very interesting part of the conversation. We talked about a lot of things, but that's the thing I think you really want to listen into and pick up the lessons learned on change, transformation, and what happens to you when you get disrupted. So let me stop talking. Let's hop in. This is recorded in the mobile studio on the show floor in the Philadelphia Convention Center. You can follow us on social media. We posted pictures of the mobile studio if you want to check that out. But let me shut up. Let's get into this episode. But before we do that, I've got that favor to ask. Follow, like, and share. Follow us on social media. Like this episode and share it with others. Without any further ado, let's hop in to this week's episode.
This episode is sponsored by Zoom. With Zoom, you can streamline your communication, collaboration, and creativity all in one place. Zoom is the market-leading platform that provides video meetings, voice, webinars, and chat across desktops, phones, tablets, and conference room systems. To learn more about Zoom and sign up for your free account, visit killerinnovations.com/Zoom.
Hanno, I want to get a little bit of background. You're here at the show. You're showing stuff. So what do you think of the show so far?
It's a, first of all, great come together of people since 2019. That's the first thing. And there is so much kind of demand has been for this. You can see it in the eyes of the delegates and the people you are meeting here. The energy level is phenomenal. So there is this very, very important people aspect. And I think this is a reasonably close-knit community. So the coming together is just so rewarding. So that's my first angle for the show. But the second one is, of course, this whole promise of 10G in this industry. And that 10G promise is so tangibly coming now together. The ecosystem parts are coming together. All the vendors are showing different implementations. So it's such a big buzz that we can now actually feel the development, the progress towards 10G becoming a maturity. That's, of course, tremendously exciting for a tech show. So that's also my quick reflections.
Yeah, the one thing with regards to the 10G is also it is about, we're seeing real product here coming, being made live. So that's been pretty exciting. You also wonder, the excitement we're seeing on the floor, is it about the technology, or is it the fact that you get to see everybody in 3D?
Yes, exactly.
Everybody's real.
And it's a combination of those two, I think, which is pumping the energy level really high.
Yeah. Well, I agree with that. I do agree with that, and it is an interesting challenge with regards to the challenges of how do you make this innovation real. Now, you're based out of Helsinki, right?
Yeah.
And one of the challenges that a lot of innovators have is you're innovating in one part of the world, and now you're trying to bring your innovations to other parts of the world, right? And there's perceptions of, everything has to happen in Silicon Valley, right? Yeah. And this is actually, it's been one of the missions of the show. I did a whole series of what I called rural innovation. So I took my bus, and we went into rural Kentucky and Tennessee and Mississippi and Indiana, finding innovators that are not in the hubs like Silicon Valley or Austin or Boston or whatever.
Yeah.
But people who aren't familiar, though, Helsinki's got a heck of a reputation as being a hub of innovation. When you think about Nokia, and you think about, I don't know, I've lost track. There's probably got to be 300 or 400 companies that spun out as a result of the engineers when Nokia kind of did the nosedive, and then everything got spun out. In fact, I did I wrote a whole article years ago on comparing Kodak and Nokia on companies that failed to innovate to the next step.
Right.
They kind of got stuck. But Helsinki's got this very vibrant. In fact, we were laughing before we started recording. We have a common friend, in the form of Peter Vesterbach, and I've talked about him on the show. And Peter's actually fed us guests, that have been on the show, that type of thing. But Peter worked for me at HP. He's very well known in Helsinki.
Absolutely heroistic figure.
He's the guy. He was head of marketing at Angry Birds. So if you either love or hate Angry Birds, I can put you in contact with Peter, and you can complain about it for the listeners. But Helsinki has a great reputation. And the country, I think they particularly stepped up pretty strongly when the whole Nokia thing was happening.
Absolutely.
So they took it on as almost national pride.
Actually, and actually I can build on that. Well, I'm an ex-Nokia alumni.
Yep.
So I was 10 years there. And actually I spent out of those 10 years, 4 or 5 years in the Nokia Ventures unit. And now, obviously, with the mobile business development, which went like it went, there was a lot of Nokians, I'm an example of that were seeking to different avenues in the career path. And while Nokia was a kind of, it was almost like Finland is Nokia. It was so big. But I think that has been the best thing for Finland, that these hundreds and thousands of people from Nokia eventually spread to all the different industries, companies, verticals, and that background of Nokia was just giving so much perspective of global business and courage, what you can achieve when you are ready to go to the world with your ideas.
That is interesting, right? Because I run into this given, when I retired from HP, I get called from a lot of small and medium-sized companies wanting to go to global scale. And those of us who've lived, you at Nokia, me at HP, it's a different skill set to try to go to global scale. And the world's changed.
And and Finland is, the startup companies are happening almost on the polar circle, way up north. So going from there and conquering the world, it's a big challenge, and it's a daunting challenge. And having there some experience how to do that, which Nokia people had, has been really, really valuable.
You talk about the Arctic Circle. I built Karlskrona, Sweden, which is 50 kilometers south of the circle. I don't think I've ever been so cold in my entire life. And I grew up in Chicago, Chicago is known for being cold. But boy,
that's cold,
man. That and you guys, the whole sun thing, never getting up, in the wintertime. But again, it is interesting, right? Because everybody, for people nowadays, Nokia has been gone for a while, so particularly the younger generation wouldn't know the history of what happened there. But again, I think what I was always impressed was the country stepping up to put together systems and infrastructure and funding and support for all of these spin outs. And I think you're right. I think Finland is 1,000 times better with that diversity of ideas and diversity of industries and the diversity of work that it's had an amazing impact on a global basis. And now, here you are, you're an ex-Nokia coming to the U.S. with products that you've been selling quite successfully in Europe. Now coming to, what's it like though because how many employees you have now?
700-800.
Right. So many people go, oh my God, that's huge. I have to keep remembering when I retired from HP, we were 240,000.
Exactly.
So there's always a different, concept of scale.
Yeah.
But what have you seen trying to bring an innovation from Europe to the US? Easy, hard?
Well, coming to a new market like US is always hard. But, the only vehicle that we can create interest here is innovation. Come on, that's right. That's the foundation. Otherwise, come on, this is the heart of cable industry. All the techie innovations traditionally have been coming from here. Why should somebody listen to a company coming from far north in Europe? The reason is innovation and kind of the finesse of engineering capabilities. That's the heart. And however, having said that it's not easy, I think US as an culture and industry community is welcoming innovation. Good ideas are always appreciated. And I would say even beyond that, good ideas are appreciated and people who bring those good ideas are appreciated. And you need both.
You do. And I think I'd be interested in your perspective because, I came into this industry. I wasn't in this industry before. I retired from HP, get talked into taking on the CEO role at Cable Labs, coming into the cable industry. And everybody's like, cable? Everybody kind of, what? What are you doing in the cable industry? You were the CTO for HP. Why are you going to cable? But this industry is amazing from the standpoint of collaboration. It's not about personalities and egos. In fact, if you have a big ego, you will not survive in this industry. It's about the ideas. It's about the innovation value you bring.
And it's amazing how there is an open culture to share innovation, share ideas, even to the level of how the standards work, where in this industry, the standards are not creating barriers of entry, rather the contrary. So you don't have to do a huge upfront license kind of stuff. It's amazing how this industry has been able to maintain such kind of a sharing culture and welcoming culture. It's very different what I experienced when I was 10 years at Nokia and in the telecoms environment. So
Well, think about the old the 3G, 3GSM,
exactly.
the now 3GPP,
Yeah.
and how
And,
those standards activities,
yes.
the SDOs do suffer from the particularly the vendor community doing barrier building, right,
Yes,
around
exactly.
their IP.
Exactly.
And versus in our industry, like for instance, if someone wanted to build, like you wanted to build a DOCSIS modem or a DOCSIS platform, you get all of the Cable Labs patents for DOCSIS royalty free,
That is exceptional.
but with the understanding that you won't sue any of the other vendors
Yeah.
who've also taken a license.
Yeah.
So we take the patent litigation risk off the table,
Yes.
which is great for small companies
It is.
who can't compete on an IP basis against the really big guys.
I mean, in the mobile space, well, you cannot make direct comparison, but in the mobile space, the venture we are trying to do over here would be highly risky. And
Right.
here we go. There is a kind of a landscape, kind of a technology landscape there for you to grab and build on it without asking 100 permits. Can I do this?
Right, or having to go negotiate a license fee to 25 different companies in order to use it.
I don't know if it is still this, I don't know, this is very industry specific, but obviously there was this famous father character, John Malone. And I could imagine it's even his heritage that is still visible.
It's very much John Malone heritage. When I was one of the 5 founders at Tellegent, John turned into being one of our largest shareholders. That's the first time John and I met. So he sat on the board of directors. I was one of the elected officers as being one of the 5 founders. And I remember those board meetings, right? They could be tough. John would be tough, but he was always surprised because of the cable industry having always been so open and so sharing and that. And then you go to the normal telecom market or you go to the IT market. I always tell the story. In fact, I shared it on stage the other day, which was, it's a secret weapon of the cable industry. Because when I was at HP, it was not like I would call my counterpart at Dell and say, let's have lunch and let's share R&D plans. It would never happen. In our industry, everybody shares. Yeah. Hey, I'm having a trouble here. How do you guys solve it? Oh, we solved it this way. Oh, that's great. And everybody's helping each other. Now, even, we're very careful at Cable Labs. We don't do standards. We do interfaces.
Yes.
And the key difference there is by defining the interfaces and defining them very specifically, that leaves everything that happens between the interfaces open to the vendors to innovate.
Exactly.
And actually, we were talking before we started recording about some of your work, which is around innovating what I call instrumentation. You call it sensing, or the sensor piece of measuring everything that's happening in the network. Yeah. Now, that's not part of the specification, right? That's the value you add that you bring to the product. So take the things out that aren't really a competitive advantage and free up your R&D dollars to innovate in the areas.
And create new ideas how to build and run these infrastructure.
Right, and go win business in a different way. Now, in your case, you introduce your products in Europe, and now you're bringing these...
And now we are at that stage that we are having the courage and strength to go beyond Europe. Yeah. And yes, targeting to get our share of the US.
And do the US customers accept your European installations as good validation, or do they not give credit to that validation?
Obviously, they give credit to that validation. I mean, there is while we haven't been in US as a brand, this cable industry is a global network of people. So reputation spreads, and it is strong asset that we have, that there is a kind of a positive record coming from our European customers.
Right. And for instance, Virgin, Liberty Global, Vodafone, Altice, SFR.
Yeah, I mean, they are strong brands.
And they're all members of Cable Labs.
Exactly.
And so from that standpoint, the fact that, if you are trying to go sell to Comcast, they're going to call, their counterparts at other operators.
Yes, they know whom to call. They know whom to call.
Right.
And that is extremely important. But still, I mean, we have to pitch our innovation here, and that is a long journey.
So what's for your organization? We talked about using the word innovation, but I want to drill in a little bit. What's the organization's philosophy? What's your organization's culture around innovation?
There is a kind of I don't know how it sounds, but while we do lead innovation, we have a process for innovation.
Yeah.
It sounds very bureaucratic, but we do lead our innovation. However, there is also this kind of notion of encouragement to think out loud. I mean, while you try to lead where your ideas should be boiling, on the other hand, there is a lot of freedom and kind of appreciation for the unmanageable part of the innovation.
Yeah, well, what we call the fuzzy front end.
Yeah, that's the beauty. How to.
Well, and innovation process is not bad. In fact, I argue, that you have to have an innovation process. Yeah. What I also argue for is the fact that be careful of locking the process, right? Yeah. So just as you innovate products or services, you need to constantly innovate the way you innovate. So process is not bad, but the dealing with the fuzzy front end, how do you encourage? Well, I mean, it sounds like because you sound like that your culture is about encouraging that thinking, encouraging the try, experiment, see if this works, those kinds of things. Yeah.
And we have been trying to encourage even further these fail fast concepts, etc. Right. But sometimes engineers are cautious with. Actually, I'm afraid how much they are actually still filtering.
Self-filtering.
Yeah, self-filtering.
They'll look at it and go,
I think that's the biggest enemy.
That's an okay idea, but Joe over there is going to not like it. I'm not going to even...
That guy will never believe me anyway.
Right, they won't believe I can do that, so I'm not even going to submit it, and they're doing it in their head.
So that's my main worry, that, hey, how much self-filtering we still have. And I think this is kind of... while in Finland, I think we have a great innovation culture, courage to say, hey, we can do this. But at the same time, the engineering community is kind of, if you will, sometimes a bit introvert and kind of likes to live in his own world, etc.
Right, well, and I think some of it also comes from the educational systems.
Yeah.
Got to get my good grade or whatever. But it also comes from organizations they come from.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten to the point where, when I look at someone's, resume on LinkedIn or whatever, and I look at who they've worked for, I can tell you how they think about innovation based on where they worked.
They're back
right, where they worked. That CEO encouraged innovation, or that CEO was negative on innovation, so and now you're hiring this person, and sometimes, it is about unlearning bad habits.
Yeah.
And I think every organization deals with this, because unless you're going to hire all new fresh graduates right out of high school before they go to college, they're all going to have the bad habits, kind of coming with them. So you got to learn how to deal with them, I guess.
Yeah.
And you have to, break them out.
But one more aspect I would like to bring up about our innovation, kind of leading the innovation and which works in our industry and our size of organization. We are no Nokia, we are not that huge. We are still having an organization and environment where product designers meet customers. I mean, there are these touch points happening, and we really try to nurture and encourage those touch points to be kind of enabled, because that's anyway, that interface is the key, and that iterative process when many of our innovations are coming from our customers, but then we refine them, we make them beautiful, and then we iterate them with them. And I think that is the nucleus also of and that is not a process per se, but that's what we encourage.
So for those, who are they then that come and have that interaction with customers? Is it sales engineering or is it core product people coming out to have these kinds of conversations?
It's of course product management, sales engineering, but we expose the core kind of R&D leaders into that customer interface. And I think that is even at least as important. But the core R&D leaders, which actually define the architectures. Product managers can do that to a certain extent, but they do not lead the implementations. It's the architect guys, and that interaction is the beauty.
Well, and I absolutely 100% agree. And a lot of other organizations try it, but they struggle with it because then, do the R&D leads, are they open to that, or is it just part of the culture? They're expected to get that input. I've seen organizations where someone from product marketing says, "Oh, I talked to customer A, and they say A, and they go, that's stupid. We're never going to do that." And you end up with this. Yeah. It doesn't get across to actually be
implementable. It's kind of there are other factors kind of putting limits to how much that happens. Now, as said, I think this works in our size of a business operation and our industry because, our customer relationships are 20 years old or 10 years old, and the people are there and they know each other from 10 years back. And there is a trust forming, which
it's a personal relationship. It's not a selling organizational.
Exactly.
I trust you because we've done this before.
Exactly.
And I know I can be transparent with you, and you're not going to think negatively or whatever.
And we hence have less interest because we have shown that it works when we do that in those engagements. So there are not sales account managers who they see that some goodies are happening. Right. So the brakes are off. Yeah. But that is possible because of this kind of a reasonably limited community of people who have been doing this time and again.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely. It is interesting about people with longevity, that have built up long-term, relationships because of how long. And this is what's unique about the cable industry. I mean, I just passed 10 years in the cable industry, and I'm still somewhat of a newbie because the average tenure in the cable industry is like 20-some years. Yes. I mean, once you come into the industry, nobody ever leaves because it's such a great industry. Yeah. Trust and transparency. Yeah, but inside of organizations, how long have your company been around now?
We have been in operation since 1954 when the broadcast TV started in Nordics. So that's when we started our business. We did 4 wall outlets. That's how we started.
Well, and it's like HP started in 1938. Yeah. Right? And you have people very long tenure and moved around inside the organization. They used to be in that role. People know the business and they know exactly who to go talk to. Yeah. You don't have any of that internal friction at all. So in your coming to the U.S., bringing your innovations here, how do you position those innovations? Are you bringing something that's like not done by the U.S. supplier? So it's totally breaking out into new feature sets.
Yes, it is. And this type of capabilities, this type of automation has really telemetry has never really been kind of implemented here. And there is kind of so yes, we very much come with that angle that, hey, this has proven to be of value in the European environment. So, hey, should we have a look? And
so here's the question then: why didn't the U.S. any of the suppliers
that is
see that gap in the feature set?
That is the core question that I have been wondering why, but and I could have many aspects to this question. Let's start from why we went into that, and that is because our customer base were not anymore pure kind of one vertical cable network providers. They were mobile providers. They were doing all kinds of things. So they didn't have any more the expertise available in the field force. And they asked us, hey, can you automate this? Can you do products where you don't need a spectrum analyzer or a handheld device? Automate that so that our kind of standard guys can still build and run these things. So that's how we entered into that path, which has been just then building on and building on after that. Whereas that has still to happen in US. But I would also throw a bit different angle into this. And on the other hand, kind of a bit different thinking, a bit even radical thinking. Does it happen where the incumbent kind of heart of the industry is? Not necessarily so. So it might be that the bigger ideas don't happen where people have been just doing this, kind of cranking the wheel year by year, and hence maybe these ideas have a more fertile ground somewhere outside of that traditional heart of the industry. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. What we've found in the U.S., what I've seen with like new companies coming up, is actually the bigger guys struggle with bringing in the newer ideas, and so the smaller operators, are the ones that are much quicker to embrace because of the same issue.
Yeah,
How do I equip my field staff who maybe not? I don't have. Struggling hiring. I can't get people to move to these rural areas. I need tools to augment my staff rather than labor to do the work. And so they tend to do it. And what's really unique about the industry is the big guys don't get their nose bent out of shape. If a smaller operator tries something and it works really well, then the big guys will go, okay, I'm going to try that.
I will have a look.
I'm going to have a look. I'm going to, they use it almost. And what's interesting, because of the collaboration, the smaller guys will share everything with the bigger guys, saying, here's what we did, here's why we did it. And this is actually how Wi-Fi mesh started. Getting adopted in the U.S. It started with a couple of the smaller operators. And then they published and shared with the bigger operators saying, here's what we did, here's what we saw performance-wise.
We think this is cool.
And this is cool. And then the bigger guys all hopped on the bandwagon. So this is where the industry collaboration is so valuable.
But perhaps we are a bit back into this filtering. So these ideas are not having that fertile ground in big organizations. And,
well, the not invented here is
I don't know.
Well, NIH is, everybody always asks about, does NIH only happen in big companies? No, you could be a 5-person startup and you get not invented here problems. So as we wrap up the today's discussion, give us a thought. If a listener is struggling with an idea, what advice would you give to that budding entrepreneur who's trying to figure out how to move the ball forward?
I'm taking the aspect of within an existing business organization.
So someone's in the organization, they've got an idea. How do I get my leaders to
I'm not
embrace
going to establish a startup and go to the VC community. No. So that's a good question. Well, first of all, be passionate and patient. I mean, both are needed. So don't give up. I mean, believe in what you what you have, and then I wouldn't necessarily immediately go to the CFO or the top. I mean, build your kind of a group around you who are more like would be opinion leaders, and who can back you up in the organization. So that is something that I would advise. So kind of don't go immediately to the top guns, but start to talk about, get wider traction, and you probably know who are the opinion leaders in your business organization. Go and talk to them. Try to get them on board. Something like that.
Yeah, I think build up your support before you try to storm the mountain.
Get momentum. Don't be alone. Get momentum behind your. But I repeat, be stubborn and proud.
Right.
It's needed.
Perfect advice. So I would encourage everybody to think about that. Think about who in your organization could be what I jokingly refer to as a partner in crime.
Yeah.
Who can come alongside and help you and who have influence. It doesn't have to be the top dogs. We'll find those right influence. Yeah. Hanno, thanks again for joining us here on the bus.
Phil, thanks a lot. This is an exciting place. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll tell you my perspective of the opening of the show in Philadelphia. It was a lot of energy, a lot of excitement. Hanno shared his thoughts on it. This was the first time that we've actually had the mobile studio parked on the floor inside of a major industry show like that. It was actually a lot of fun. About 250 people came through the bus to take a look at it. Next show up, we will be at Consumer Electronics Show in January. So if you're in Las Vegas for Consumer Electronics, come find the bus. More than happy to let you come in, take a look at the studio. And if you've got a topic or you have an innovation story to tell and you'll be at CES, let us know. Drop us an email. You can send us a message through either the Killer Innovation site, or you can go over and fill out the contact form over at theinnovators.network. So with this, let me wrap up this week's show. As I said in the beginning, this is the first episode of a sequence of episodes. I think there was a total of 5 interviews we did at the show. So stay tuned. Those will be coming about every week, every other week or so, depending on other episodes that we've got pre-scheduled. So stay tuned. You'll get them all. They're all lined up, ready to go. And we'll get those out to you. And you'll learn a lot of what's really happening in the broadband industry on a global scale. And again, everybody we interviewed are innovation leaders within their organization and within the industry. So also hearing from them about how they innovate and how their organizations deal with innovation. So with that, thanks again for your time, listening to the show. We do greatly appreciate you being with us here each and every week. Don't forget, subscribe. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast so that you're automatically notified for each and every episode. That way you don't miss anything. You can also find out all the shows. We're going to get ready. We're launching new shows with new hosts over at theinnovators.network, all about innovation, all about all kinds of innovation. We have innovation in healthcare right now. Kim McNicholas's show, which is getting a lot of really good traction. We have some new shows. I don't want to, pre-announce them as of yet. Stay tuned. All coming between now and the end of the calendar year. So go check those out. And with that, thanks again for your time. Really do appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.
This show is distributed by the Innovators Network. For more information and other great shows and content, visit theinnovators.network.